Hey Storytime friends! It's glad to be back with you again. And today we are going to talk about winter clothes, which we finally have been getting a little bit of snow. So this is perfect week to talk about winter clothes. But before we get started, let's sing our song. If you're ready for a story, take a seat. If you're ready for a story, take a seat. Clap your hands and stomp your feet. Make your hands all nice and neat. If you're ready for a story, take a seat. Okay, are you guys ready for our first story today? I am going to read to you The Mitten. And it's adapted and illustrated by Jan Brett. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wool as white as snow. At first, his grandmother Baba did not want to knit white mittens. If you drop one in the snow, she warned, you will never find it. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens, and finally, Baba made them. That's a nice grandma, right? After she finished, she said, "When you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound, but then I will look to see if you still have your snow white mittens." So Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and was left behind. Can you guys see? You guys see where he dropped the first mitten? See this? These pretty pictures on the outsides shaped like mittens. A mole tired from tunneling along discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. Can you see the mole discovering that mitten? A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped for a moment to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten, and he wiggled in, feet first. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved over. Can you imagine those two fitting in that one mitten? Next, a hedgehog came snuffling along. Having spent the day looking under wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten and warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered with prickles, they made room. Ouch. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled. But when they saw the owl's glinty talons, see those look sharp, they quickly let him in. Look, can you see? Here's Nicky. Doesn't even realize he lost a mitten still. Up through the snow appeared a badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb. Must have given him a good thumbs up. That is one stretchy mitten. It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and a fox trotted by, stopped to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. The fox poked his muzzle in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. Can you imagine? Wow. I would not want to be in that mitten. A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten, all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. The animals were packed in as tight as could be, but what animal would argue with a bear? The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and bulged too many times its size. But Baba's good knitting held fast. Along came a meadow mouse, no bigger than an acorn. She wriggled into one space left and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. Oh, here's Nikki. The bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous sneeze. Achoo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the sky and scattered the animals in all directions. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was the lost mitten silhouetted against the blue sky. As he ran to catch his snow-white mitten, he saw Baba's face in the window. First she looked to see if he was safe and sound, and then she saw that he still had his new mittens. She's a little bit confused by one. See, that's the one all the animals got inside, and that's the other one. This is a really cute book. If you guys haven't heard this one before, you should come and check it out at the library. It has lots of fun pictures that that you can look at as you're going through the book. Really pretty art. Okay, so let's sing a song. If you guys have winter hats or mittens or gloves or scarves, coats, any of that stuff that's easy to go and grab, pause the video and then come back and hit play. Okay, so we are going to sing Warm Clothes for When It Snows, okay? And I brought some warm clothes to put on. And as I sing, you can put on the clothes, or if you don't have them, you can pretend if you want, okay? I forgot to bring my boots, but you can do it with boots too. Okay, here we go. My hat goes on my head, my hat goes on my head. Warm clothes for when it snows, my hat goes on my head. My gloves go on my hands, my gloves go on my hands. Warm clothes for when it snows, my gloves go on my hands. Do you guys have a scarf? My scarf goes round my neck, my scarf goes round my neck. Warm clothes for when it snows, my scarf goes round my neck. My coat goes on my arms, my coat goes on my arms. Warm clothes for when it snows, my coat goes on my arms. And if you had boots, let's pretend that I made boots. My boots go on my feet, my boots go on my feet. Warm clothes for when it snows, my boots go on my feet. Now I'm cozy. You guys recognize this animal we talked about last week? It's a penguin. And if you're gonna go play outside for a long time, you'll probably want snow pants too. So, another fun song that you can do with your winter clothes, if you want, is you could do If You're Happy and You Know It, but you could say If You're Cold and You Know It. So you could say, sorry, or if it's snowing and you're cold, put on your hat. If it's snowing and it's cold, put on your gloves. Something like that. You can make up any kind of fun song and have fun with your winter clothes. So maybe I'll leave my winter clothes on for this last little story. This is Froggy Gets Dressed by Jonathan London, and the pictures are by Frank Remkiewicz. Ooh, that's a long, kind of cool name, Remkiewicz. This book has been well loved and is falling a little bit apart because I think Froggy is a favorite character. It was cold. Froggy woke up and looked out the window. "Snow, snow," he sang. "I want to play in the snow." "Go back to sleep, Froggy," said his mother. "Don't you know, frogs are supposed to sleep all winter. Wake up when the snow melts." Remember when we talked about hibernation? And frogs hibernate, or they are supposed to. "No, no," cried Froggy. "I'm awake, awake. I want to go out and play in the snow." So Froggy put on his socks, zoop, pulled on his boots, zup, pulled on his hat, zat, tied his scarf, zwit, tugged on his mittens, zum, and flopped outside in the snow. Flop, flop, flop. "Froggy!" called his mother. "What?" yelled Froggy. "Did you forget to put something on?" Froggy looked down. "Oops," cried Froggy. "I forgot to put on my pants." I bet that's never happened to you guys. He flopped back inside, flop, 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 tugged on his mittens, untied his scarf, took off his hat, pulled on his boots, and he left his socks on and slipped his pants on. Zip! Then he pulled on his boots, zup, put on his hat, zap, tied on his scarf, zwit, tugged on his mittens, zum, and flopped back outside into the snow. Flop, flop, flop. "Froggy!" called his mother. "What?" yelled Froggy. "Did you forget to put on something?" Froggy looked down. "Oops." What did he forget? "I forgot to put on my shirt." "And your coat," added his mother. So he flopped back inside, flop, 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 took on his mittens, untied his scarf, took off his hat. He left his pants, boots, and socks on, and buttoned up his shirt, zip, zip, zip. Then he snapped on his coat, snap, put on his hat, zap, tied on his scarf, zwit, tugged on his mittens, zum, and flopped back outside into the snow. Flop, flop, flop. "Froggy!" called his mother. "What?" yelled Froggy. "Did you forget to put something on?" Froggy looked down. He had on his mittens, he had on his scarf, he had on his coat, he had on his shirt, he had on his pants, he had on his boots, he had on his socks. He reached up. Yep, he had on his hat. What could be missing? "Your underwear!" His mother laughed. "Oops," cried Froggy, looking more red in the face than green. He flopped back inside, flop, 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 tugged off his mittens, untied his scarf, unsnapped his coat, unbuttoned his shirt, unzipped his pants, pulled on his boots, pulled off his boots, took off his socks. He left his hat on and slipped his long johns on with a zap of elastic. Then he put on one sock, zoop, put on one boot, zup, tugged on one mitten, zup, started to tug on the other, and let it drop and said, "I am too tired," and went back to sleep. Oh, that takes a lot of energy. Good night, Froggy. I love Froggy. So that's it for today's winter clothes story time. And next week we are going to, next week there's a holiday. And it is Groundhog's Day. So we're going to see next week if the groundhog sees a shadow and if we get longer winter or if spring comes sooner. And you guys can come in and get the supplies to make one of these groundhog puppets if you'd like. So I guess it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. right here at Storytime. Have a wonderful week, and I hope you have some fun in the snow.